Okay, so we'll call the meeting to order. So I guess we'll start with introductions. So I'm Mike Marcotte, State Representative from Coventry, Chair of House Commerce and Economic Development, and I also chair the SOCWED. Senator?
Oh, I guess there's just one of each of us, right? So when you say that, it has to be me. Allison Clarkson, Senator, Windsor County District, Majority Leader, Vice Chair of Senate Economic Development, Housing and General Affairs, and Government Operations. Do we pass the baton to Jay?
Hi, Jay Ramsey. I am the Interim Director of Workforce Development at the Department of Labor. And I guess Adam.
Hi, folks. Adam Grinold. I'm the Executive Director of the Brattleboro Development Credit Corporation and Chair of the Statewide Development Board. Homesick today, so I'm staying off camera and largely quiet.
Adam, we are really sorry about what's going on in your neck of the woods. We were just talking about it.
Oh, it is.
It's heartbreaking to have groundworks go through that.
Impacts of that tragedy we just don't know how much it's going to ripple through the community. It's terrible. Yeah. Thank you.
Kendall?
Good afternoon, Kendall Smith, Governor Scott's Director of Policy and Legislative Affairs.
And Alicia?
Hi, everybody. Alicia Ordway, Senior Consultant at Public Consulting Group. Do you want us to our whole team to go through introductions?
Yes.
Okay. Good. So starting with the PCG team, Candace.
Hi, I'm Candace Finney. I'm Director of Operations for Public Consulting Group, and I am the Workforce Development Subject Matter Expert for PCG.
And Nancy.
Hi, everyone. Nancy Snyder, working with PCG. I'm a workforce consultant. I'll hand it over to Mel.
Good afternoon. My name is Mel Arsault, and I work at ICF as a senior workforce consultant as well. Mike.
I got off mute. Hi, this is Mike Lawrence. I'm also with ICF, senior workforce consultant. Hand it over to my colleague Adele.
Good afternoon. I'm Adele Soto. I'm a Senior Director of Workforce Innovations at ICF.
And I think Ron, camera shy today, but present.
I am here. I don't know why. The camera decided not to work today. It could be in deference to, Cruz's injury yesterday as the Pirates once again won. What can I say?
So I guess the easiest place to start. Do you want us to start with Representative Marcotte, or do you want to start, I guess?
Well, I think the SOCWED needs to approve the agenda and then approve the minutes, and then we'll pass it over to you. So motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Not all in favor, say aye.
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 And opposed? Okay, the motion carries. And then the approval of the minutes from the March 13th meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
And is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Are there any discussions? If not, all in favor say aye.
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 I think with minutes, just deep gratitude, because it's so nice to not have to do them.
Isn't that the truth? Okay, so now we're here to review and discuss the consulting team's progress to date on phase 1. So it's a review of Vermont landscape. So Alicia, I'll turn it over to you.
Excellent, thank you. So I'm gonna screen share. Hopefully everyone can see the title slide. Yes, okay, fabulous. So you should have received a version of this on Friday, but we're not going to assume that everyone had an opportunity to necessarily digest it all. So I'll go through at a high level, but I hope that we can, use this time in an interactive way so we can just collaborate in real time. So, okay. Here we go. So we did flag that the First Lady was in Vermont last week talking about these issues of applied, or the opportunities of applied learning in the workplace. And I thought Secretary Cardona's quote was a good one to frame about what we're trying to do through a lot of this work, in particular around capturing young folks in Vermont in that young age group, and just really, as he said, tearing down walls across educational jurisdictional pathways. I did try to do a where's SOCWED search. I think maybe Rep Marcotte, were you in there? Did I catch you?
Yeah, I was there and Kendall was there.
Okay. I thought of that. Maybe I could find some folks. Okay. Any reactions to the
not
news?
Not all of us were invited. So just, some of us might have been there if there'd been more room for others. So Marcotte carried a lot of water.
Okay. All right. Very good. Okay. So, but here we go. So a nice opportunity. I think also, as I'm sure as it was clearly made clear at this event, I imagine, was the federal opportunity for infrastructure investments. So something we can maybe talk about later about how you might, if and how Vermont might be considering applying for some of those resources. That'd be an interesting conversation to have. But first, phase one. So just to reiterate, just wanted to highlight the goals of this first pass was really to think about, for us in particular, to highlight the existing workforce system, report on what's happening formally and informally in terms of coordination and integration of resources, identify those barriers to effective governance, administration, and integration. And then the fourth task was really about participant level data. In thinking about the project plan, we added some additional questions to think about alignment around shared vision. An opportunity, we saw this scan as an opportunity to understand from a stakeholder perspective what their priorities were and how they drove towards them. I think, Kendall, you had highlighted this in the project plan, a desire for us to lift up innovations and adaptations that were happening across the state. And I think number 4 is kind of aligned with number 2 in terms of what are the stakeholders prioritizing and how are they acting in good faith, and what are those things that are reinforcing the collaborations. And then finally, evidence of strategic planning and coordination. And so with those tasks ahead, we divided the work into 3 segments, though some of them, they appear as discrete set of activities, but they were really overlapping and happening at the same time in many respects. So we did our background review of some available documents. We conducted an aggressive sprint to meet with a lot of people in a short period of time. And then also we are developing a database of all of those resources that the state, both the state and private entities, are putting towards pathway development and workforce development. Okay, so I'm not going to go through with these line by line, but I think one of the things that we would ask is, after scanning this list, if there are additional assets or primary sources that we may have overlooked or missed that we need to consider. If you could flag those for us, that would be great. I understand that last week the CTE governance report was delivered, so that is not reflected in this scan, but we will very promptly add that to our mix here.
Right.
So I'll pause here just to see if there's anything that stands out for anyone, or any additional thoughts about the document review in any case. Yes, Jay.
How far back do you want to go?
That's a good question. You know, I'm interested into what others think, but my first inclination would probably be anything sort of right before the pandemic, nothing too far back, but anything that set the stage, I think, for the system as it was before the pandemic, and then we can look carried through.
Okay. Most of the things that I'm thinking about are mentioned in the Perkins state plan,
Okay.
or also mentioned in the lead-in or some part of this funding and governance study document.
May I just ask, Jay, is there a Perkins state plan, annual state plan, or when was the last one completed?
The last that was completed in 2019 and was effective for 2020 to 24. So they'll have to start revising in the next year, I think. It's a year plan.
So, because can you just send that to Alicia? Yeah, no, I was just thinking Alicia's the right person to send it to, right?
Yep. Yeah, they have the state plan listed up.
I didn't see anything that began with a P.
Vermont, the second item, Vermont state plan.
Okay. The technical education one in 2020? Oh, yeah, Perkins 5. I see. Yeah, sorry, I didn't.
That's okay.
Sorry.
Okay. So yes, definitely Perkins will look close, especially with that past plan, the new report. That'll be definitely a priority, especially after having done the stakeholder interviews. I think there's a lot there for us to probe in deeper. Kendall?
I was wondering what Governor Scott's strategic workforce vision is for a document that you reviewed.
I think that was the website.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we can go back and clean up and specify. We have another document and a more of a working spreadsheet. And then there were some, I guess, while we're here, let me just take you to the next page. These were just some of the things that people shared with us after as well. So like the Vermont Forest Economy Career Guide, the UVM Institute for Rural Partnerships, that came up in a couple of interviews. So we looked at a couple of those things, etc.
I just had another stray thought, sorry. We have several other workforce kind of support programs like the JVSG, the Jobs for Veterans State Grant. There's the Work Opportunity Tax Credit Program, that all of them require an approved grant from the Federal Department of Labor, but we don't publish those documents.
Okay.
They do say what we're working on to support veterans, what we're working on to support migrant and seasonal farm workers.
Yeah, we do have a whole, so I'm wondering, and Candace, I'm going to invite you if you want to jump in here, because I think you looked at a lot of these reports too. But we do have that separate inventory too of all the line items with relevant links. Okay. So, but I think if there are reports that aren't publicly listed, send them our way. If
they're grant awards, not necessarily reports.
Okay.
Do they include more than just the funding?
There's a narrative that describes how we will spend the money that is being allocated to us, but it's not something that needs to be aligned with WIOA. We don't have to state things necessarily in WIOA, but there is something in the state plan for veterans.
Okay. Yeah, we could probably definitely use those.
Okay.
Okay, great. All right, so desk review. Then we did a lot of interviews. We didn't get through all of them. It was a busy time. It's a busy time. And so for many folks, this is at the end of this deck that you received on Friday, you'll see the breakdown of specifically who we spoke with in what organizations and who the people are who we were unable to either we didn't connect with at all, or we had to reschedule. And this is a compilation of the feedback that we received from all of them. And what we tried to do was highlight the 5 themes that were manifested across stakeholder groups. And a lot of these are probably not surprising necessarily to you. And again, these are just based on the first round of interviews, but common themes included just gaps in the workforce, in the public sector workforce and aligning that with a lot of state agencies experiencing high turnover and people having to change roles, that it's just inevitable that there are going to be gaps, whether it's just in roles, knowledge, processes. It's just it's a difficult time. I think the second theme that was highlighted was around this issue of communication, and I think it was a mix of just what's visible, what's available in the world, and people's ability to find it, but then also like across stakeholders. And then we can get into more specifics around some of the communication by program. And I think the third theme here that I just want to highlight, and again, I'm paraphrasing because you all can read it, but I think that there's a lot of enthusiasm and a desire to align resources, but I think sometimes people felt like their lanes weren't really clear necessarily, and the targets that they were aiming towards. I'm going to pause there and invite either other people who were part of the interviews, if you want to add any commentary on any of that, or if folks from Vermont have follow-up questions that you'd like us to elaborate on. If you have questions that you would like us to elaborate on any of these. Jay, you've come off mute. I wonder if that is that an indication you have something you wanted to add, or?
Well, think about the third one, and I think everyone is well-intentioned, and some of our objectives are stated in like the WIOA state plan. So, I'm not I get into trying to problem solve. So what is the solution to this? If we already have identified objectives, and what's the problem?
Mm-hmm.
I get communication is a frustrating thing. There's never enough of it, and it's never in the right way. But I don't know what to make of all this.
So I guess I have a question. I mean, do you want to finish the feedback before we talk about it? Because there's key themes in there are 4 and 5 on the next page,
Correct.
right?
Yep, exactly. Yeah. Let's keep going, and then I think we can talk, if you want, to sort of the high level themes, and then we can also go into stakeholder perspectives.
Because I think there's something missing here that would be interesting when Jay asks that question. But maybe we want to finish the other 2 things.
Yeah, definitely. I think number 4 is also a lot of the role of VDOL came up a bunch of times, and thinking about how in the state they're playing so many roles, and in some respects, and Candace, feel free to chime in here as well, because this was a focus area for you. But just that in statutes there's supposed to be firewalls, and it's challenging to implement firewalls when you're also the implementer of the services as well.
Right. I did go read the state plan and could not find where any of that was defined. And it may be defined somewhere, and we just don't have that information. So if it's out there, we would love to see it.
Well, so I'm still working on coming up to speed on WIOA, but I do know that the Workforce Development Board is working on procurement for the one-stop operator. So I don't know that that's defined in the state plan, but I think it shows up in some of our monitoring reports from the federal government. So it's a thing that we have to report a status on every couple of months.
And so I think the last issue that came up too is, and again, these are some preliminary top level sort of themes that came up. And I think there were interesting threads of this that came up in a lot of different places. And I would say that, there seems to be this tension around, and I don't want to overstate it, but it did come up a little bit around this issue of, the role of business versus individuals and big business, and I don't know, economic culture, if you will. I think, and we've even talked about this a little bit, is this emphasis on the tension between what happens locally and sort of the balance when you look at things statewide, and sort of how do you navigate and effectively negotiate that tension. And then the last piece was really about Vermont placing a high value and making significant investments in K-12 and in higher ed, but not necessarily integrating workforce as fully or consistently. I think many people spoke highly of the work of the CTE, the Career and Tech Ed programs, but expressed a desire to perhaps make them more available writ large. But because of, some of these tensions, that was of whether it's regional versus state and the why we're doing this project, but that was a theme that came up that I kind of bucketed here under, cultural values / perceptions.
So
yeah.
may I ask a question?
Please.
So what is interesting to me is, I guess I'd go back to communication, because I think what Jay was frustrated by is also a communication issue. I mean, I'm sort of surprised no one is asking. So for me, what's missing here are measures. Like, how do we know how we're all doing, rowing in whatever direction we're all rowing in? And I think one of the main reasons we need sort of a focused leadership in this area is that there's no one communicating how we're doing. And I think Jay's surprised that we don't all know what the objectives are in WIOA. It may just be that there's no one communicating out and pulling everyone together to identify how are we doing and who's doing what, and sharing that on a regular basis. And I know that's the State Workforce Development Board, but maybe that's just not happening as effectively as we would like.
I think that's an interesting points. You're probably right. I think, so I'm going to just say from experience working for the state, we're running a program, and not all the time are we thinking, how do I put this out to the public so that they can have visibility? It's trying to balance all of the other obligations. So I would say for us here, now we're building a communications team so that we have an embedded person in workforce development who can help us communicate out to Vermonters what's available to them, and also here's what we're doing with our programs. So that's little baby steps, but I think everyone could do a better job of orienting our communications to what we've been working on and why, reminding people why we're doing what we're doing.
And how are we doing?
Yes.
I mean, I think that's kind of the thing I'm missing here is the communication with everyone who's in the system, not just to the public, but just to everyone who's doing this work together. Everyone ought to be clear who's doing what and how well we're doing.
Yeah, I think Senator Clarkson, that's a good refinement on the language that isn't necessarily here, but I would affirm that is part of the theme of what we got feedback. And I would just say and I saw Cameron, you had your hand up, but I just want to say in response to what you were just saying too, I would almost say it goes even above and beyond the programmatic pieces. And it's like, what are the collective impact goals for Vermont? Collectively, no matter where the resources sit, how do we all contribute our resources, whether we're an employer, whether we're a private university? How do we all put our resources together to move the needle on behalf of the community of Vermont? I don't know if other people from the panel want to chime in too, based on your experience, that summary. I don't want to speak for the whole group, but I think that is part of it, though. What you were saying, Senator Clarkson, and what you were saying, Jay, is and I think if we get into the specific detail, some of the groups expressed a desire to maybe have the state play a leadership role in utilizing its capacity for data and analysis, in particular around like wage records, things like that, so that they can understand how well they're, not only what is the goal and the vision, but then if we put our resources into the mix, how do we know that we're contributing and getting measures collectively and for within our own programs?
And if I could take it a little bit further, reporting on things that matter to us, not the things that matter to the federal government for the programs. We're constantly reporting things to them, but the way that they want it is not a meaningful data point for any, regular Vermonter.
Or for our business partners, or for anybody who kind of wants to know where we are at any one moment.
Okay. Maybe we can come back to these, or if you'd like, I can go through sort of the nuances by group, if that's helpful. Okay. We don't on time. Okay, we're about halfway through. So, didn't want to be all, obviously, I want to come back to and cite some specific examples because, this sounds like critique, right? And I think what we wanted to also emphasize is that there are a lot of good things happening. And these are not to say that this is exclusive, but we just wanted to lift up a couple of examples where we're like, oh, this is, here's examples of where things are happening in terms of a coordinated way. Or I think the Central Vermont Economic Development Corporation collaboration with the UVM Rural Institute sounds like a very deliberate strategy, right? They're saying who from our county went to UVM by name and how do we bring them back in the summer and really explicitly make those connections with business. So I just offer that here as one of the three where there's something very tangible, measurable, that could potentially yield results. So. Okay. Awesome. Again, some more. These are just kind of beginning. I thought it was interesting too. I did not, until we started talking with folks, did not fully appreciate how many working community challenge grants that the Boston Federal Reserve Bank had made to the state. I thought that was really interesting. And I think that would be something for us to even follow up on even further to see what kind of coordinated efforts. I think there was one or two. Springfield, I think, was the one who somebody from Springfield highlighted that in their interview. But then when I looked at the Federal Reserve website, I saw that there were quite a few more. And so maybe there's some more things to be gleaned from those collaborations. Kendall.
There's lots. I can send you, Alyssa, they testified in Senate Economic Development the other day, and it was terrific update. We got a great update, and I'll try and send you the link to that YouTube so you could see it.
Okay, great. That's good. Fresh testimony always sounds good. Kendall, yeah.
Yeah, I was wondering, building off of what Senator Clarkson asked a moment ago, on these 6 examples, is there basically like data or measures that you all were looking at in terms of choosing them for highlights or promising practices in terms of how many people are being placed in jobs through these programs, or kind of what metrics you guys were using on these if we're going to take a deeper dive into them?
I would say that there were not metrics associated with them for qualifying per se, for being here on the list. I think these were more just examples of either a practice that could be replicated, like the case with Vermont and with the Rural Institute, or a coordination that was happening above and beyond what you would have expected anyway. Or in the case, there's reference here to like the Community College of Vermont and the collaboration with the DOC. Like that sounded like a very holistic strategy in terms of what they were thinking about for providing resources not only for those who were imprisoned, but also the corrections officers, and thinking about that strategically. But we could revise, and so all that being said is that no, there wasn't a framework. Though if you want to talk about the framework to build one for the final report, like we could definitely, that would be a good conversation I think to have. So what I heard you say was like numbers served. What else would be important?
Well, again, I was just thinking, so I'm just using like an example, familiar with the CCB collaboration with DOC that you just referenced, and it is very exciting, but it's also very new. So we're not sure yet, like what the outcomes are going to be and if that is going to be a successful strategy. So while it is exciting and something that we're very, again, you know, hopeful in terms of how it will go, I just was wondering, just again, looking at that one, again, when it's so new, was wondering kind of, we don't know yet, right? Like where the blind spots are, if it'll be successful, hopefully it will. And so that's why I was just kind of digging into some of these in terms of, yes, I guess how they were chosen.
Well, that's fair.
And will that serve to keep them, our DOC workers, because we have the highest turnover rate, I think, in state government there. Will it serve to keep them, or will it serve that they upskill and depart? I mean, you know, it'll be curious to see what the result is. I mean, it can't help but be a win-win for the people who are the inmates, but for the officers, will that be something that means they stay and grow in their work, or will it mean that it's something that they upskill and depart? That sort of needs a tracking.
Definitely. Okay.
I could add something else there to CCV, that they are the sponsor of a number of different registered apprenticeship programs.
Right, exactly. Ooh, good point, Jay.
And with Department of Corrections, the Department of Corrections uses the registered apprenticeship model to train new employees for their first year. So not that these things are overlapping, but they are related in the workforce development sphere. CCVs, they have a pharmacy technician program, there's a manufacturing program, they're starting a robotics program that's related to apprenticeship, and there are a couple of other occupations, and they do the work of going out and talking about apprenticeship to a business and getting them to sign on, and they handle all the paperwork for the business.
Small thing.
Yes, Vermont Technical College does the same thing. We also have an interesting model with Vermont Association for the Education of Young Children. The Department of Children and Families contracts them to run a registered apprenticeship program, so they registered it with us. They get businesses to sign on. They are training and delivering the related instruction for those childcare providers.
Yeah, so I think, you know, there was definitely an eagerness for acknowledging the power of applied learning through registered apprenticeship and seeing more of it. So maybe that's something that we, again, this was a draft, but we'll be conscious of making sure to like lift that up and give it more visibility as a strategy that's taking hold and people have an appetite for. Okay.
And Mike, you could speak to this, but coming out of our workforce development bill that we're working on now between the House and the Senate, another partnership that is seeming to be a win-win is the Audubon Vermont Works for Women VYCC.
Serve, learn, and earn.
Serve, earn, and learn. Yeah.
Serve, learn, and earn. Yeah.
So, which may also hold some promising. I mean, there are a lot of the things that we're building on are promising. So we should get some of that to you.
Okay.
There should be data there from Serve, Learn, and Earn. This has been, I think, going on the third year. So they do have some data as well.
Through women
well, you can probably through VYCC.
VYCC, okay.
Yeah. I think Brett can get you the information.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, great. All right, just being mindful of time, and we only have 20 more minutes, so I'm going to go a little bit faster through some of this because I think the important part is to get your feedback on the next steps. So, okay, so I think at your leisure, you can take a look and see sort of the themes. Again, these were by category, stakeholder category group. So I think just as I'll just kind of do twofold here. I think we heard from a couple of industry associations and a couple of larger employers. I think there's room here to get some more employer perspective as we kind of move to closure on the Vermont scan. But again, I think this was also a place where employers, there's an opportunity for more centralized coordination. I think employers recognize that they're hiring people who may need more supports as they either return to the workforce or because of other things in their lives. And so there was some employers who really said, we'd like to collaborate more with the social services agencies and figure out how to do that so that we can be as supportive as possible of people as they come into our workplace. Economic development was also really interesting. I think this was the group that we probably percentage-wise talked to the highest number of people that from that list that was shared with us. And I think this also speaks to what you and Senator Clarkson were talking about, this collective impact vision, and how do we look, what numbers do we care about as communities? How do we feed into them? It seems like this is also these are also organizations that in some cases really successfully have legacy of being that convener in the community. In other places, maybe not as strongly as some of the others. But I thought another interesting thing that people raise, and again, it goes back to the human services side, is understanding cliff effects and what happens when people begin to earn more income and triggers reductions in their public benefits. And so as communities, how do you how do you study it so that you can navigate around it, I think was in shorthand, what we heard from them. Higher education. This one might be skewed a little bit. We got a lot of feedback from Norwich University, so this is where you'll see more references to veterans in this section. But that also sounds like as you think about worker attraction and building out a new workforce, this seemed like an area worth further review. And especially I'm interested, Jay, if you have those grant reports, that'll be interesting because the folks we talked to there made it sound like there's opportunity for Vermont to reposition itself as a destination for veterans. So there were some interesting insights there. State agencies, I would call out a highlight here is that there was an acknowledgement that from the state's perspective that businesses have to go to too many places to connect. Not an uncommon problem, right, in any community, but I think this was something that we heard consistently across a variety of agency perspectives. I also hear a reiteration around the benefits cliff, which I thought was interesting. Similarly, I thought this was another great insight, is that, again, looking holistically and not necessarily by program, that just as there are many steps for employers to take, there's also reference to like a job seeker having to go through multiple steps to get their needs met. Training and service providers, I feel like this is an area we could also go back and maybe talk to some more folks. I don't know that we got a fully representative sample here. We heard from Job Corps primarily, and Youth Build and Hireability, and maybe those are the three primary, and maybe that's enough. But here's a little bit of their feedback. So, and then other is this category of folks who didn't neatly fit into, or there was only one or two of them. So I just clustered them here as others. So I think what I'd love, if with your permission, either to have discussion or just talk about for the next 15 minutes or so, what you would like us to prioritize as we think about building on this draft and getting you a more complete picture that will be useful. Okay, so I think Jay, what we'd like to do is get with your team, and understand. I think the career centers is definitely an area where we did not necessarily learn enough, like firsthand. I think we, as Candace said, we read the Wheel report, but that's only so much. I think it would be really advantageous for us to follow up with you and the team to talk a little bit more about that. Also, I think another significant piece is that we haven't actually heard from, apart from some businesses, but we haven't gotten the beneficiaries of the systems perspective. So I think going back, that'll be, and we can talk about this, but whether or not it's reaching out to Youth Build or some other programs, maybe the Career and Tech Ed centers, just trying to get a little bit more of a sense of what the human experience is like. Back to Kendall's request for the customer map, right? What is their sequence of experiences? What's the quality of the experience? That sort of thing. That's definitely a piece of work we'd like to get going on quickly.
Okay, so Friday I have a meeting with the Agency of Education. Do you want me to put them in contact with you?
Sounds great.
All right.
Yep. And we can follow up offline, Jay, just to even talk a little bit, about what you have coming up and where we can plug in, and so as to not make more work, but just figure out what those handoffs look like. Great. Okay. And this is the Job Center. These are some of the kinds of questions that you can take a look at, Jay. And maybe once we cross-reference with some of those reports that you said already exist, we can tackle that. Yeah, so thinking about it was interesting coming out of now these stakeholder reviews and some of the document reviews. I think we've narrowed down, or at least highlighted, some of the groups that we're most interested in speaking with, because they seem like interesting opportunity junctures. So those recent graduates, the 18 to 24-year-olds, people returning to community after incarceration. I think this immigrant and refugee question, it's clear that there are some pockets of action in the state, but maybe understanding what the differentiators are in a more established community like Burlington, where I shouldn't say more established, a community where the practice of serving immigrants and refugees is more established, and some communities that are a little bit, still forming those networks, trying to understand what's worked in some places and how much of that is transferable to others. And then, again, sort of reiterate this benefits cliff question, and folks who are receiving social services, thinking about the TANF and SNAP customers. And then I think this active military question is one that might be worth understanding a little bit more detail. Kendall.
I see that you have DCF on your interview list. Did you discuss the benefits cliff with them when you met with them?
That was not me. Was that you, Candace?
Was me, and no, I did not. It was not mentioned.
Okay, well, so they would definitely, if you're wanting to dig more into the benefits cliff, be the starting, I guess, point anyway, where I would suggest you go. And we do have a proposed pilot in the governor's budget that I'm happy to send the details of around Reach Ahead and Reach Up. If that would be of interest, or DCF, if you reach back out to them, can give you more information.
Yeah, they did go into a lot of detail about the Reach Ahead program that's coming, hopefully. So I told them that we would circle back around once we had more questions, so they are expecting us.
Obviously the role in career and technical education, this has come up a little bit more. Also, sorry, Jade, I keep mentioning your name, but we were thinking also about the ETPL and alignment of that. We haven't necessarily fully integrated that into this holistic plan yet. But I think again, this goes back to labor market alignment, and just patterns of how the ITAs are being used in the broader network of resources. But we can follow up with you on that one. Okay. And then this is so I guess this is just to sort of end here with our last 10 minutes for discussion and sort of to get your guidance. I think just want to reiterate how amazingly responsive. I think it was pretty amazing that we got to do 50 interviews set up in 2 weeks. People were really prompt and responsive. And there's a handful of people that, as you'll see in the list, we reached out to twice, and might not have heard from them. But there's also these additional folks that people in the interview said, oh, when we asked them, who else should we talk to better understand? And in many cases, this is the list of specific names. More at the top of the list are kind of general recommendations that people had. But these are the rest of and I think most of them, except for Ronnie Basden, were new names. Were not necessarily people who we had on our list. So,
oh, so these are people you still might like to talk to.
These were people other informants recommended we speak with.
Oh gosh, had we actually spoken, I would have suggested you speak to Scott Farr. So I think Scott should be at top of your list for CTE,
Okay.
and Jay may have others in CTE. I just saw Scott this morning down in Springfield. So he's terrific. Another Sarah Jackson is new at Vital Communities, but I think she's a very quick study, and I think she'd be terrific to talk to because she has a kind of holistic, she has a sort of high level vision of what's happening, swirling around in the Upper Valley.
Did you talk to Pat Moulton?
Yeah, Pat is
for the colleges?
she's not on this list, but I assume you talked to her.
Yes, Pat was on the original list. So if you scroll through
To
further,
the end, I was trying to find who you did speak to.
Yep. So if you go to the next slide, it should say interviews completed by group. Yep. And I'm pretty sure Pat Moulton.
Yeah,
Yep.
you did Bob Flint.
Okay.
And Erica, which is great. Oh, whoops. And Ellen, you had a good talk with Ellen Kaler. Great.
Yep.
You had a lot, and I failed. Alyssa, I totally apologize.
No,
but you
no
sparked.
need.
No,
You and
it's
we were both having bad weeks because I wasn't around, and then that was bad. So, but we can follow. I definitely want to follow up with you, obviously. But
no,
yeah,
but you spoke to Mike and Kendall and Tristan and Michelle. Those are key.
Yep.
Far more key than me. And
So
Kevin Chu. Yeah, you've spoken to some terrific people.
And so I guess that's my question for you all is if after this call, if you take a look at the people, anyone, so there was that list that we just looked at of people who were recommended by others. And then in this table format are the other people that you had recommended. And so if you feel like there's other people that you definitely feel like we should speak with to get a more rounded perspective, let us know.
I have thoughts right now based on what Senator Clarkson and I were talking about at the start. If we're trying to measure something, who is holding the yardstick? So who's doing this measuring? Who is involved in the data? I think that is going to be like a key set of people that you haven't talked to. What's the data structure like?
Yes. We spoke with Nancy and I spoke with the gentleman. His name escapes me right now. Your labor market.
Matt.
Yeah, we spoke with Matt, but
yeah, it says you spoke with Matt. We can see it.
But program participants and measuring who's in the system.
That's definitely a different layer, right? Yeah. Okay.
Alicia, do you want help looking at this one slide, getting in touch with these business industry folks that haven't responded? I know all of these people personally and could copy you on an email to them like tonight, tomorrow morning, saying you're trying to get in contact, please respond.
I think this is probably that time, right? You all had offered at the beginning saying, if people don't, people get busy, but I think if they get a message from you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll follow up as well when I see them in the hall.
Okay.
Great.
I think Allison, you can too.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to.
Just
So
like-
Kendall, you're talking about
Like,
the industry, the business and industry associate crowd.
I don't know I know of Joe Tisberg. I could get his contact from the agency at Ag, but like Peter through Jill, like all of those folks.
Yeah,
I
if you
could
wanted
very
to
quickly reach out to.
Okay, so making assignments now. So we got Kendall taking the business people, Peter through Jill.
Yep.
Okay. Is there anybody in economic development who you feel strongly about?
Fred Kenny and
Oh, Fred was sick.
that's a reschedule, so I would pursue him.
Okay.
And Frank, I don't know how, I mean, and Frank Coffey should, I mean, I'm happy to help on that, but I think Kendall might put the fear of God in Frank.
Reach out to
Right.
Frank.
Yeah.
Um,
And and the others are rescheduled. I don't know Bill or Tyler. Is Tyler Rutland? Yes, Tyler's Rutland. David Allaire is no longer mayor of Rutland, and I don't remember the name of the chap who just got elected.
Okay.
Elected. And Keisha's about to give birth to a baby. And so Keisha and I can, in terms of higher, yeah, she's in the hospital. Catherine Lavasser, I can put the squeeze on Catherine. But you spoke to Pat Moulton, and Pat really is the key at the state colleges. I mean, she's really the workforce czar.
Yeah.
And Wendy Koenig, I can also squeeze Wendy.
Yeah.
So Pat and Catherine, although I think if you've spoken to Pat, you're fine.
Okay.
And I assume Joyce Judy, you spoke to, the CCV president. Oh, damn, this keeps moving.
Yeah, let's see. And then these are the state agency folks. Okay, so oops.
Michael Harrington,
yeah,
that's a little surprising. Kendall is, sadly, I hate to say it, in the best position to
yeah, I can
push them. I can't believe,
yes.
Joan. I mean, all these people need to respond to you.
Okay. Would it help if I do another round of emails and then CC? I don't want to give you all more work, but I could do another round of emails and then just CC you folks. Is that easier? So they see your names at least?
Yeah, that would help.
Sure.
Okay.
To everyone, or are you talking about the agency people or to everyone?
It sounds like how about everyone where we haven't heard from their organization? So like Vermont State Colleges, we've heard from somebody. I won't follow up, but or I mean, it's also time. So if you feel like, I that's the other thing is if you feel like we've gotten.
So I think you've heard from some great people.
Yeah.
But if you want to follow up with the state agency people, for example, where I'm on that page right now.
Okay.
They're all no response except one, Heather Boucher, who's now the interim deputy. She's now the interim secretary. She's the only one who's rescheduled. They all could do with a CC from Kendall, because that hopefully will put the fear of God in them.
Yes,
And
I
you
can
could
just
say
reply like right after you. Will you do if you do a group email, Alicia, they won't be offended by that. And then I can just like, when I see it come through, I can just like reply all and be like, yes, please contact Alicia ASAP.
Okay, I'll do that.
And the same, I think, would be true with the training service provider. If you did that,
Yep.
I mean, I know some of them I can follow up with, but if Adam, I mean, I don't, who is the best person to CC on those? Jay and Adam?
Yeah, I can help with the Tutorial Center, Northwest Tech Center, and Vermont High Tech, and VSAC,
Okay.
and Hannaford.
VSAC we spoke with, probably just not that one, because we had like 3 or 4 names for VSAC, so we did get to them. I'll do that cross-reference. So any organization we haven't heard from at all, I'll put them in the list and then CC one of you, depending upon the audience, and then
Yeah.
we'll see where that gets us. And then we have a lot of follow-up with Jay on just getting into like career centers and things like that. So I apologize. I feel like we didn't have tons of time for discussion, but any like sort of last, I'll follow up with other stake items. I know Senator Clarkson, you had some good testimony you'll send our way.
I'm going to send you the YouTube with the Vermont Community Challenge.
Okay.
Right? Isn't that what and
Yep.
then I will send you the people that I can, if you CC me on people like, you know, the Governor's Institute Executive Director, Elizabeth Franskoya, and Pat Elmer, and you know, there are a bunch of these people I know, but not as, you know, Adam may be more impactful than me.
Okay.
Good. It's me.
So-
They can
I'll put
ignore.
you both on, and then you can chime in.
Yeah, Alicia, so I can actually ask my committee assistant to touch base with a lot of these people. We've already had them in the committee. He's got all their contacts. I can just have him send an email out to them saying, you know, the chair would like you to please respond, because we know that you haven't had time yet. Please respond to Alicia.
Yeah, and you know, I can do the same thing. Scott could do the same thing for any ones you want that you really want to hear from.
Yeah, if you want to
That's
split
a
that
great
list,
idea.
Alicia, then we can.
Yeah.
We want to make sure we're not duplicating.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So I'll do some work on the list.
Okay.
Kendall?
I'm sorry, I just wanted to clarify. So you're gonna put all the government people on one and reply all. Are you gonna do the same thing for that business group? I can also say with confidence, these people won't be offended if you do a group email and then CC me and I can reply all. I did have one actual kind of methodology question. When you're interviewing everybody, is there a set of questions, like a consistent set of questions that you're asking and then giving people time to kind of freestyle, or are you just giving kind of one open leading question at the beginning and seeing how the conversation goes from there?
They were 30-minute interviews, and we kept the questions pretty simple to allow for some of that variation, but it was basically, how do you connect to the system right now? Where do you see situations of coordination or lack of coordination? And how do you see opportunities for improvement, greater impact?
Can I throw out one other person that I don't know if I see on this list? Is Christine Halquist, our director of the broadband board. They're doing a lot of work.
Great
Yeah,
idea.
she is on there.
Is she on here? Okay, great.
Yeah, she was great.
I think you already interviewed her.
Yep.
Okay, sorry.
She was one of the early ones.
No, it's hard to see. There are a lot of names.
Yep.
And there are a lot of good ones, and there are a lot of, but on the ground, how are you getting the on the ground, the people, the beneficiaries? Who is identifying those for you? You said you wanted to speak to people who had been.
Yep.
How are you identifying those people?
So I think that's where we go back with Jay and talk about maybe doing some career center work, and then maybe like some of the career and tech ed centers, some of the people we've already spoken with.
Yeah, Scott Farr would be really good. Scott's a great person for you to talk to because he really is a kind of leader in the CTE system, wouldn't you say, Jay? I mean, he pulls everybody together. He does the white papers. He's really an energy force in CTE.
Okay.
I'd also recommend Gwen Bailey Rowe at North Country Career Center.
Oh yeah,
I think the two of them work together pretty close.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, great.
And
I think Adam, did you want to?
Yep. Yeah, thank you. Just clarification on the process for some of the RDCs and others. So it was unclear how you're going to reconnect to them and me and your original request.
I'm sorry, what was the beginning? You're talking about the process. Yeah, I think so for the business and the state agencies, I'm just gonna CC them all, or excuse me, to subject matter, send them all the same email, but CC Kendall. And then for the training centers and things that are more community based, I'll probably do you and Jay. And then if there's anyone who doesn't fit into those obvious categories, I will follow up with Senator Clarkson and Senator Marcotte because they might have been giving testimony. Oh,
Great. All right. Thank you.
okay. And Jay just sent me another one too. Okay.
Oh, Jay's a whiz.
Okay. Thank you, Jay. Okay.
You got, I mean, thank you. So I think you've managed to do some terrific outreach. You've spoken to some very thoughtful, articulate people on this issue. So,
Definitely.
I mean, I've just skimmed through that. So your list, but good work.
Okay, good. Well, please, so sorry we're rushed, but if you have, if you have another 15 minutes or whenever you have a chance to look at it at your leisure and other ideas occur, like please let us know. We're very focused this week on laying out the plan for the next phase of engagement as we transition to thinking about the structure and the framework for benchmark states/municipalities.
Right.
Okay.
Excellent. Okay, well, thank you so much for your help and willingness to help wrangle some more people for us. Appreciate it.
Okay, thanks, Alicia. Any thoughts on next meeting? Stay with our schedule or?
Oh, yeah, I think we Abby, it's not for another couple weeks, 2 weeks, right?
Yeah, so we have it scheduled right now for May 8th, which is a Monday, and it's at 1, and it's only for an hour.
Okay, is this one where you might want to meet in person or another virtual meeting for an hour?
I think it may be the last legislative week.
It's going to be busy, no doubt.
It's going to be a crazy week, but so let's do it virtually to start with and see where we are.
Okay, because then is it after that, then do you think you'll have a little more flexibility in terms of scheduling or?
Well, we're
Yes.
hoping, I think May 12th is adjournment target.
Okay.
Yeah,
Oh,
the
okay,
12th or 13th are sort of what we're aiming for.
Okay.
And
then
we
there
do
might be
we do have a 2-hour meeting scheduled for June 5th, so we do have a 2-hour one
Okay.
coming up, but that's
Yep.
not till June. The May one is an hour.
Okay, or maybe the June one we try to meet in person.
Yeah,
Okay.
which just means a lot of travel for all the rest of you, right?
Yes, us non-Vermonters, you mean? Yeah, well.
But a lot of you, if we're there in person, a lot of you could be virtual too, if you needed to be.
Yep, definitely. Okay, but yeah, I think that makes sense. That sounds like the right cadence. June 5th is a target to like really workshop some ideas and do some of that deeper dive. Okay, excellent.
Okay, good. Abby, do we have anyone from the public joining us today?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. So I guess if we're finished, are we all set, Alicia?
I am.
Okay, so a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, is there a
Thank you.
second?
Thank you. Okay. Bye all.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.